Good evening, Tammy. How are you?
Hello, Dr. Rob. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am fascinated. I met with Dr. Jessica Lamar today and did a
You did. I forgot about
podcast.
that. Thank you.
I so
Isn't
her
it
focus
interesting?
is AI and relationships. She call artificial intimacy
I
is
know. I
what she
kept going like,
calls.
wait, you said intimacy, not intelligence. And
I know,
so,
and I think those
yes.
are to me not it's an oxymoron, like
Yeah.
artificial and intimacy. It's fascinating. I have to say
Yes.
these, and I'll just say for a second, I use AI for correcting a letter or for doing something fun. There are ones that are you're in an entire relationship. It's like that movie Her, where
Yes.
they immediately develop empathy for you. So within a moment or two, they're actually in communication with you. They're telling you what you need. They're talking about caring and nurturing, and I can understand how you feel. And it is a relationship. And by the way, a lot of folks that we've talked to have asked, is AI cheating? And the answer is yes, it is. In the case of, if there's anything that meaningfully secret in a relationship and you're not talking about it and you're spending lots of time in it, it's probably cheating. But anyway, we'll do future discussions about that. I was gobsmacked, really.
And because we did a webinar together and I was, like all over it. So I was really anxious for you guys to record a podcast together. I'm glad that you were able to do
Like an
that.
hour and a half or something. She's
Yeah,
great. Anyway,
she is.
liked her.
And she's done
Hmm.
multiple webinars for us. We're waiting for questions. So put some questions in,
That's
otherwise we'll keep
fine.
talking. But
Well,
one of the things and you said it too, and she said it in her presentation of like what you need. And I was like, what we perceive we need and what we really need are two different things. But AI is going to give us all the warm and fuzzy things, the things that we're like, we want to hear that. We don't want to hear somebody who's kind of confronting us on
well, that's the
challenging
problem.
things. Yeah.
It's sort of like, and I mean, a lot of sex workers will say, if it's a man, he came to me, 90% was he just wanted to be understood and talk,
Yeah.
for right or wrong. And this is a better than a person because they never disagree. They never
Exactly.
argue. You're always right. They're always empathic. And the challenge is going to be, why wouldn't you want that partner? And then the same as porn, which is, how could I ever compare to that? I can never be empathic all the
Exactly.
time and nurturing all the time and loving all the time. So the whole topic is just fascinating to me.
And
Um,
we're so at the beginning of all of
yes.
there are things that we can't even imagine that in the next year or two will be things we'll be dealing with, like.
Well, right now they're avatars. Like basically, you're
Hmm.
creating a little cartoon, but
Hmm.
in not too long, it's going to be you. It's going to be a face, and I'm talking to you, and I can say a blonde, a brunette, whatever I want you to look like. And then, of course, we're going to have the robots. Or we're not going to live long enough to see that. And in some ways, I'm glad. But the nature of mating and growing a relationship, because it's instant empathy, it's instant compassion. It's not grow a relationship, spend time getting to know each other, and it's just for someone who's been done this work for so long, like you and we have a whole new area to explore where people are cheating, they're having relationships, and by the way, so easy. Well, it isn't porn. It isn't like I'm having a relationship with someone. It's not like going to see a sex worker and I'm not having sex. It's wow. It's just fascinating to me.
But and that's the catch, is like it feels real, it feels good, just like porn and everything. So
Right.
it's like one of those things where and it meets my needs, or does it? Like, I really believe that human beings are meant to be in connection, and I hear that there's a perceived connection,
Right.
but it's still not a person. So yeah, I
Well,
find it all fascinating.
I use AI for cooking. And I make mistakes, right? I put too much salt in, and I say, I think put too much salt in, and they say, that's don't worry about it. Lots of people put in too much salt. Don't worry, we can balance it. Your meal's going to be fine. And oh, okay. I didn't do it
Mm,
real. I just feel supported and validated, and that's just with making a hamburger.
yeah.
One of the things she said, though, which I thought was really great, was betrayed partners, because a lot of betrayed partners will say, oh, I don't want to talk to you, friends. I don't want to talk to anybody I know. They're too, and you can go and have a relationship with the AI and talk about things you might never, what it's like to be cheated on, what it's like, this person or I know the person they cheated on me with, and you can say it there, and it will grow and it will begin to respond in a way that's helpful, which I just, what does she call it?
But so like to make so to we still don't have questions. So
That's
but
okay.
to that, um you'll feel supported, But aren't you,
Mhm.
don't you still know? I don't know because I don't do that. So don't you still know that you don't really have support, that you still can't tell other people? I'm asking.
Well, I think a lot of partners don't feel like, they feel so idiotic. How could I not
Um,
know? And, if I tell people, it'll all talk about me, or, what, they don't, who can you tell? Who do you talk about this? Because everyone
yeah,
thinks, why don't you leave them? It's a very difficult thing, to talk about, and to sit there and say, I don't know what to do. I'm really struggling with. And remember, we already have I can already say, how do I organize this letter? And it will give me, so it already very quickly, it understands you. It takes every little piece of you, and it is building a sense of what you need, and it does it really quickly. Actually, it's interesting because she said when it goes down and things go down and you lose your data, right? You talk about this, we hate this. It doesn't know you at all, and so you have to start all over again. And for people, this is like a relationship. Like, oh my God, my friend is gone, and what happened? Because you have to start all over again. It is. If you ever saw the movie Her, it
I did
is
not.
that.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh, I
yeah.
recommend it. It is about someone falling in love with an AI.
I
By the way,
remember
she
the movie, but yeah, I did not choose to watch it.
definitely,
So,
she calls them AI companions.
hmm
But I want you to think about, I'm just, questions. There are senior citizens who live alone. They don't have anyone to talk to. You can actually have somebody around. And so or you have someone who has Asperger's and they have problems with social relationships. It will guide them about how to interact. And so there's so many positives, but like anything, there's so many negatives. And
yeah, yeah, I'm not like, I think my biggest hope for it is medical. I think the medical
yes,
technology with artificial intelligence is going to, like, it's going to be
we're
amazing. And
going
I
to cure
think that,
cancer for
yeah,
sure.
I think there's going to be
Mhm.
some really amazing things. But the disconnect for people, like, uh, uh, it's all, to me, like the wild, wild west. I think more will be revealed. There's always going to be some good things, and then some,
It's a
there's,
reflection of us, right? But you and I remember when the problem in our culture was overpopulation. There were too many people, how would we feed them all? Now the problem is underpopulation. And why is that? Well, what I read about the research is we're too comfortable at home. They bring me food, I'm watching Netflix, I don't have to go anywhere. And I feel so comfortable here that, what would be the reason to leave the house? And so anyway, we could talk about this all day, and I could have talked to her forever.
oh, yeah,
Um,
well, I'm glad.
Thank you for
Sometimes,
that.
yeah, you're welcome. Because, like, yeah, I find some really amazing people, and when it works out for a podcast, but she was a guest on webinars too, and I've really appreciated her things. But
And I want to
okay,
say
so
this first, it's the podcast is sex, love, and addiction.
and I will
Just so
put
you know.
it on the, like, for those
Thanks,
of you
Sam.
joining, I will also put the link to the podcast. And then all of these webinars are posted. Everything's on our website, seekingintegrity.com, as you can see in both of our backgrounds. That is an opportunity for you. I'm going to put this in everywhere. And then somebody has a question, but it looks like part one of two. So I'm going to start with part one, and we'll see. Hello, Dr. Rob. I recently relapsed. Here's part two. Relapsed after 2 years to porn and AI chatbot. Working late night was
Wow.
stressed, and my anxiety, medication, and alcohol made me lose inhibition and also made poor choices. I accept it was my own choice and got caught. My wife planning for divorce and wants to change a 2 year schedule so that it will stay. So when she actually files, I'm double down on my recovery and focusing on stability of my house and being a father. What else can I do? But this sudden schedule worries me. Should I agree to it? It seems lawyers look at recent child schedule for custody, and I don't want to lose my child. I am a porn and sex addict, was sober for 2 years. Should I get a lawyer?
Wow. There's a lot there. And
Yes.
I'm going to we won't touch on the AI part because I think I've already discovered that. So I want to make a few recommendations, and I'll make them straight out. You don't have, there are things called trial separations or therapeutic separations. Divorce doesn't have to be the first thing. That's kind of going from black to white. There are lots of grays about how to separate and distance yourself from relationships. So, and I really encourage, again, I did a podcast called Therapeutic Separation. It is two parts with these people who are absolutely wonderful. They wrote a book about how to do it, how to go through it. And I would suggest that maybe, since you guys are talking, that you might consider that conversation, because then you kind of get to test drive. What is it like to be apart? What is it like to be together, rather than making a conclusion? Um, We also did a podcast called Collaborative Divorce. Aren't you glad I'm remembering the names? Called Collaborative Divorce, and
Read the chat, you'll see it too.
well, I knew you beat me to it. And it is about that process of how do you, whoops, I lost my screen here. How do you get, how do you in a healthy, reasonable, reflective way begin to separate your lives in that way? I will tell you that one of the things that came out of this, and no offense to the attorneys who are here, was the last thing you want to do is get a lawyer if you possibly can. Not because to take your life and put it between this attorney and this attorney and some judge, and it can take 3 months for this form and 6 months for that, and you're struggling and it costs a fortune. So if there are ways, you can avoid the attorney and things like mediation, like a collaborative divorce. So I know that's not what you're thinking about and hope doesn't happen, but I just want to say to folks, you may feel like I want a divorce, and I completely understand that, but you could also say, I want to be separate for a period of time. I don't want you in my house. You can also say, if we're going to divorce, let's meet with a divorce therapist who can help us find our way through. So I just want to say that because people, and I understand, move right to, I got a divorce, and there's so many steps in the middle. Did you make my question go away? Hold on.
No,
No, there it is.
it's a series of four now. The,
So,
the last one is my
right,
wife is very manipulative from my
right.
experience. I'm going to jump on that one
Well,
when
you
you
can
get
talk
done.
about that part, but
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that about divorce, about the piece you mentioned is that um, your child custody is unrelated to what's happened. So if you're not looking at illegal pornography, you're not looking at underage, you're not engaging in illegal something's going to get you arrested. Honestly, I understand partners will say, well, I have a list of how many people you've cheated with, and look at all these sex workers you went to see. And wait till I show the judge. And to be really honest, they don't care. They have plenty of couples, the infidelity, and they know a spouse wants to throw this. This is what custody is about. Do you feed your children? Do they have a safe place to live? Do they get to school? Is there anything you do that might physically harm them or abuse them? They're interested in the basics of whether that child is being cared for. So this idea that, and I understand the feeling behind it, like I want to get a divorce, is I'm going to make sure you don't get custody and look at all the people you've been with. They don't care. They care about, is this child safe? Are they going to be fed? Do they have a roof over their heads? So I think also using it as a threat, putting your children even in a discussion, the kind of fear and anxiety it produces, I would just take that off the table. Considering what you're doing, I'm not going to let you see your kids. First of all, that's not going to happen. And second of all, it's kind of like divorce. If you're going to threaten divorce, be really clear on what that means and what you want to do. And that's why I recommend therapy separation, because you can have a period of time to see, kind of take a test run of what it's like to be separate and find different ways to and by the way, there are different kinds of things. I'm sorry, Tammy. A therapeutic divorce can be, we meet once a week in therapy. We talk this and then. We might go out to dinner, or it is, we don't talk for 3 weeks. And that's the point, is that there are, how do we handle money? How do we handle seeing each other? How do we handle seeing the kids? You can organize and create all of that pre-divorce stuff to see how it works before you move to that next step. But I wouldn't get the attorney. And by the way, I don't know how hot this is. I didn't look, Tammy, but when did this
It's that I recently
recently?
relapsed. Yeah,
Right. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
is it happened 3 weeks ago? Because I imagine the response you're getting is going to be different than it was 3 months ago. I don't
I
know.
would say it's in the less than 3 weeks. Let's go with it's in
Yeah.
the more immediate recent time.
Yeah. So partners can understandably hopeless, and they may just want to move out of the pain of it and not be subjected to more humility. And I understand that, but there are probably a lot of things about the relationship that are positive, that may be good parenting, living together for so many years, knowing friends and church and home. So as difficult as the moment is, I try as hard as I can to help folks look at the bigger picture, which is who we are over time and not just in this moment. Um, so,
Oh,
so
three
Tammy,
days. 3 days.
oh my God. Yeah, I'll leave this
So,
one to you, Tammy. I don't mean to
okay.
be just the three
Okay.
days.
So hang with me and throw more questions in. But like here, I'm going to start at the very top. Okay. So it says, working late night with stress and my anxiety medication and alcohol. So, like, if alcohol is part of the problem, like, even if you're not an alcoholic, if you know that it makes you lose inhibition and you're already stressed, that would probably be at the very least a middle circle behavior. Maybe it should be an inner circle behavior. I don't know. It clearly caused you big issues. And then I'm going to go to like I'm going to pick this apart. Sorry, but
It's
hopefully,
okay. I got more to say. You go right
I
ahead.
have a point. Like so, hang with me. Alcohol made me. Nobody can make me do anything. I chose to drink. Therefore, I chose to reduce my inhibition and therefore I made poor choices. Yes. So, and I hear that you accept that it was my own choice and I got caught. I also hear and you got caught. So, like I said, I'm going through rather than to wife, I did this, I accept full responsibility. You got caught. So now my wife is planning for divorce and wants to change 2 year schedule so that it will stay this like that I don't quite understand that, but to me that is like that doesn't sound ethical. And to me it would be like if you move forward with a legal separation, I'm going to talk about that in a moment, then everything would need to be stated, and I think that you need to state that this is accurate to the best of your ability, et cetera. So I hear that you're doubling down on your recovery. Here I go again. Is doubling down enough? Like, and I'm asking them. You're talking about stress and anxiety and alcohol. Like, what all are you doing? Just saying, well, I'm really gonna do it this time isn't going to be enough. So what were you doing and what's your real plan for what you're going to do? And I've got more resources for you in a minute too. But um and being stable, yes, that so if alcohol is part of the problem and you're still struggling with that, maybe AA on top of the S meetings, etc. So should I agree to it? We are not going to advise you on anything. I did put in um the in the chat. We did a series on should I stay or should I go, and the first one I Kristen Snowden did it, and there's a survey in there. There's 10 questions. I would invite both of you to journal about that and compare your answers. Like just see where you are in relation. Like, do we like each other? Can we vision? Because here's the deal: you have a child or children, you will always co-parent. When you're my age, you will co-grandparent. Like you will. So this is not like, well, done with him, gonna be done. Like this is the
Right.
journey. So the better you are able to lean into recovery for yourself, on top of your child or children, and wife or ex-wife. I don't know. Like that's all. It matters and it doesn't. Right now, you are in a crisis because of your behavior. So okay, so and I am a porn and sex addict, sober for 2 years, and I'm gonna like. Here's a challenge: if you're using other things like alcohol, and I know I'm really hardcore on this, but here's the deal: if I'm using other things to numb out and escape, I'm not really in recovery. I'm abstinent from these particular things. So you were abstinent from sex and porn. Great, that's a good start. But if you're still using things that are those gateway things, Dr. David Fawcett talks about, smoking and vaping is like you're keeping that dopamine going. You are more likely to relapse on anything, 9 times more likely. So I can give you all kinds of research. Dr. David can too. So if you really are serious about, doing the house cleaning and doing the work, 90 meetings in 90 days at the minimum for 12 step, getting a sponsor. I don't know what step you were working. If you've gone through all 12, time to do it again and look at all of your behavior. So, and Dr. Rob was right. The attorney thing, Dr. On the fourth, we had a mediator, and then we had an attorney, and he's also involved with seeking integrity. So he's both a mental health professional and an attorney. And he says the legal system doesn't care. It like if you think it's going to help you with your emotional things, it's not. It's just that's not what it's designed to. It's not good at it. And depending what state you are, it really doesn't care. My wife is very manipulative from my experience. This is the one I wanted to get to.
Mm.
My wife is manipulative from my experience. And she may feel like that to you. And she's probably thinking, my husband is very untrustworthy, is not trustworthy. My husband is unreliable. My husband, how do I know when he's going to relapse? So doing the blame game about, I don't know, she may have some manipulation. She may also go, I need to protect my child and myself and my finances, and I'm going to double down on all of those things. So I think I, I would invite you, rather than going, my wife is manipulative, to go, wow, my responsibility, my actions have really caused a world of hurt. I was on a path. I didn't watch the warning flags. I wasn't paying attention. I'm also thinking that your three circle plan could use some shoring up to that end. And there are some, I do them too, but there are some guys that would be really good on our support sessions. I will put the link in a minute. They're 25 or 50 minutes. I would invite you to schedule 50, and talk about what your three circle plan is, share what's been going on, and see if you can get some help shoring that up. Low cost, but could be a really good, impact. And, the online work group, Sex Addiction 101, could be another, like start at the beginning. You haven't had enough. There's also a group on Tuesday nights, free drop-in group for those men who are or have struggled with co-occurring sex, porn addiction, and some form of substances, whether it's cannabis, alcohol, opiate stimulants. If you're using substances also to numb out, that's a free drop-in group that Dr. David normally hosts. He's away at a presentation right now, so he won't be there tomorrow, but you can join that free. So there's a ton of resources. But I'm doubling down, but like if you're doing this and you're just doubling it, that may not be enough. So I'm going to invite you, I'm going to give you some more resources. I'll put them in the chat. But please, like you have an opportunity to, you stop those behaviors for a couple of years. You also know that wasn't enough. So now it's time to really do the housekeeping. Steps 4 through 9, we did a whole webinar on this, but steps 4 through 9 are the house cleaning steps and the 12 steps. You really focus on them, and your searching and fearless moral inventory, like, it cleans up so much stuff. You will have a whole different awareness. So now I'll turn it back over to you
I
and
have
go pull some more
so
stuff.
much
So
more,
please.
so many more things. First of all, 8 out of 10 of the men who come to our residential treatment program are there because they've been threatened with divorce. And a lot of times their spouses will say, I want to divorce you, I'm done with you. And I think a very good step is for a spouse to say, you know what, go to treatment and I will hang in there as long as you start working on it in a very serious, you've had 2 years to work on it at home, even to therapists, whatever. And I'm done with this relationship unless you go get some help. And I have seen some of the addicts say, I never thought that we didn't begin to talk to each other again. And it is giving your spouse that time and that space and seeing your commitment. So what I say to your spouse is, before you go to divorce, say, I want you to go to treatment. You have 2 years to get ahead of this. You're still doing it. Obviously, something's missing, and I want you to go get a higher level of care. This is almost, I would say, most of the men who come into Seeking Integrity are because they are facing the loss of their family and their children. And there could be nothing more painful, anything to drive that. I also do 2-hour consultations,
I was going
and
to
I sit
mention that too.
down. Oh, I was going to take a step back. One of the specialties at Seeking Integrity, which I will take some credit for, is looking at the intersection between drugs, alcohol, and sex. And so you're clearly talking about a situation where the alcohol, whatever, however you often you use it or whatever, led to your sexual acting out. And I think that it's easy to minimize that part because you get in trouble for is the sex, but it's the whole picture. And Tammy says, this is whack-a-mole. You knock the addiction down in one place and it comes up in the other. And I think one of the things we do well in our treatment is really try to hold it all down and see what's underneath to pushing all of that up. I have a whole bunch of things I wanted to say, so please forgive me.
Please.
You're missing your clues. One of the great things that I'm able to do in treatment, I think it's so important, is say, well, you feel like looking online, but what happened before? You didn't do it for a year. What happened? Well, I was stressed. I was in a room by myself. It was late at night and I had a couple of drinks. How great. You now know, if you're stressed, if you're in a room alone, if you've been drinking, that you were in trouble. Even if you're thinking about it, that you're in trouble. So what's great is called relapse prevention, when we begin to see what is leading to it or where we're already in trouble. Because by the time we're doing it, we're just kind of doing it. And a lot of people, I just ended up, one of my least favorite terms, I just ended up on this site. You didn't end up there. You were tired, you were stressed, you have emotional issues. Um, and I guess I wanted to say one more thing that's a little bit bigger is you don't get to live the way you have been living. The men I work with will say, how often do you work? I work 12 hours a day. I work 10 hours a day. I'm incredibly stressed. I hate my boss. Well, guess what? I know addicts think we are strong because we can handle a lot. We are so much more emotionally vulnerable than other people. And you have to look at your life. And I've had men say, well, I work 70 hours a week. That's the way it is. I'm like, no, you're going to work 40. Because if you want to save your marriage and you want to have things work out, then you're going to have to take time to slow down and pay attention. So I'll tell you a story that I tell the clients, and I like this story because I made it up. Um, I don't know, Tammy, you remember those on the old TV shows? They would have plate spinners, right? So they'd put up a plate and they go like this, and they put up the next plate. And the goal was to get as many plates up as you could, and all of them spinning. And so the person would get them spinning and then run down to the other end where they're kind of wiggling and get them going faster and then going back and forth. Well, guess what? At a certain point, they can't get back and forth fast enough, and all the plates fall on the ground and they smash. What people come into treatment for and come want is they'll say, I want to be a better plate spinner. I want to be able to keep all these plates up in the air and keep them moving because the problem is that they fell on the ground. The problem is you're a plate spinner. We are addicts and trying to get back and forth and do all these things and make it all work. You're already having a marriage that's in challenge. You're already trying to recover. I'm not sure that the way you're living your life is really supporting your recovery. And I say that because it's right there. You have information. What is it? Anxiety medication, alcohol, stress. I mean, you already know. By the way, these weren't poor choices. They were inevitable choices.
Good
You
point.
put yourself in this set of circumstances. You cannot go in your office stressed out late at night on medication. You don't get to live that way anymore. So, and why are you at home online working late at night? That may be something you don't get to do anymore. So it's not just about finding different ways to live. It's actually about changing our lives in order to accommodate our vulnerabilities. So, yeah, you haven't heard my plate spinner story before. I don't think
I
so. I
had
got one
not.
for you. There we
Yeah.
go. Thanks for
So the
that.
next one, I want to respectfully disagree with you. I do not think most judges would think that it is okay to possibly expose your children to your addiction. My partner's daughter only missed catching him masturbating and watching porn in the house. And I suspect that you're right, that the judges don't think that, but the legal system is not equipped to deal with that. So,
Yeah.
it was, if you haven't seen that video, and I put it in the chat, I would really invite you to watch that because I believe that you're right, that the judges would not think that is okay. And the law says this: I have to follow these guidelines. That it is not good at any of those discernments. It will, as Stuart shared, it's going to do these things, and it's not going to do them particularly well. So if you're choosing to leave a collaborative divorce, if you can navigate it, would be a much better for everyone. You guys get to pick how you're going to handle your children and everything. Otherwise, the court does, and they do the best that they can. I'm not going to squelch the court, but I've been through friend of the court, and I remember saying they're nobody's friend. Like they didn't really care about any of us involved in it. So I hear you, and I agree 100% that they would not think it is okay. And if they're following the legal system, they may not have any input on what their thoughts are. So, Dr. Rob, you have anything to add to that one?
Yeah, I think my answer is going to be a little challenging, but I'm going to say it anyway. What I do court appearances. I don't work
Mm,
on divorce and custody cases because they're honestly, you guys are there's so much emotion involved. It's
mm,
very difficult to negotiate, but I do work on expert witness for porn issues or underage. I mean, I go to the court. I'm an expert witness, federal and state, just to say it. But in any case, what I understand is a couple of things. And I've had judges say to me this, so please forgive me. They'll say, do you know how many angry women I have come into the court who say
mm,
all kinds of
mm,
things because they've been cheated on and they want
mm.
to make sure that he pays? Unless you have a photo of that and him doing that, the judges will say, well, I'm sorry, but are they being fed? Are they, now I do I think somebody should be masturbating porn in front of their child? No. Do I think somebody who is doing that is safe for their children? No. The court is going to say, where's the photo? Show it to me. Or the court is going to say, please forgive me. Oh, this is another angry woman who's been cheated on and she's going to throw everything. And look, he was arrested for seeing sex workers. They don't care. They're concerned, are the kids fed? Are they taken? So I completely agree with you that if the court were to see that and they believed it, and you could, of course, they would. However, that's not how the system's set up. This is a legal system. It is not set up to protect anybody in a sense. And by the way, I'll say one more thing. When I do expert witnesses, one of the first things the attorney says is, let's what judge is this case in, because they know the judges who are going to say this guy needs to go to jail, and they're going to be other judges who say I'd like to learn more about that. So whoever you land in, this is not consistent, whoever you land in front of based on their experience and their beliefs will give a different choice. So again, I don't think the legal system and is really, if you can avoid it at all, and for those of you divorce attorneys, God bless you, it's hard work, but anything you can do to avoid that kind of acrimony is going to, well, it's certainly going to hurt your children less. I'll tell you that. And to me, that is what's really important. How do I come home and face my children? How am I in front of them? What arguments are they seeing? They come first in my mind. So in any case, appreciate the information. I think reality is often different than we would like it to be. So,
Well, and it varies state to state too. Within, so like you said, judge to judge, but also, the laws are, they very much differ state to state. So all of those things in context. So it's always important to, if you're do your homework. We have all of that information in those webinars, and they give really good advice on how to move forward. Make sure you're doing your research, you're getting the assistance that you need to be supported through that process. There's no, they said it, there's no winners in any of this. So, okay. All right. The next one. Do you have any advice for someone who is newer to the 12-step SAA program who is looking for a sponsor 6 months over? Good for you. You're going to be so shocked. I put more stuff in the chat, navigating the 12 steps, because we did one within 12 step, like with alcohol you go to AA, but within the S world we have a list. I'll pull that in a moment too, but we've got a list of a number of different 12 step programs. I will transparency, I'm on the board of directors for Sexual Compulsives Anonymous, SCA, but that's just one program. But it's really finding the healthy meetings. Find the healthiest meeting. You're like, I would anticipate that in the meetings, people will raise their hand and say, I'm looking for a sponsor, or say, I'm willing to sponsor. I mean, that happens in 12-step meetings. There's a number of different ones, but please check those out. There's a video navigating the 12-step, but also real recovery, because we talked about how to navigate, we talked about 12-step in that one as well, that, that could be helpful. But I'm going to go pull the list of 12-step programs in S.
And I want to respond just to directly answer your question, which is, well, first of all, you don't have to have a sponsor for life. You can say, I'd like to work with this person for a while, and I think that they're not the right person, or they don't respond to me as often as, or I'd like to do more writing. And they, this is a trial run, and it's a relationship. I've had sponsors say, I don't want to work with you, sorry. And so by the way, it's a great opportunity to practice a relationship that is intimate, where you're being vulnerable, that doesn't involve sexuality, just to say it. What I look for in a sponsor is a role model who has been down the road similar, whose wife is threatening divorce while they were online, and or who went through who went through a crisis in their marriage, but they've come out of it and they're on the other side and they're doing better. I want someone who's a step ahead of me. I want someone who can guide me in the direction. And that's what I listen for. We relate best to people who are like us. So I don't necessarily want to seek out a single 25-year-old when I'm 50 and I'm married. I want not, love 25-year-olds, but they need other young people to seek them out. So my experience is, number one, it's not forever. It's a trial run in a relationship. Either one of you can say, this isn't really working for me. And the important part is then you go on and find another one. You don't just say, oh, this didn't work, I want someone else. And finally, you want someone who's a role model. They're not a friend, by the way, they might become a friend. You also have to be willing to listen, because they're going to say, I want you to do this and I want you to write that. And that means they're telling you what worked for them. And if you don't want to take their direction, I've had a lot of sponsors say, I really love working with this, really care about them, but they're not really wanting to do anything I say. So they're not the right person for me to help. That's a whole bunch of stuff, Tammy. Oh, by the way, one more thing, just go to a 12-step meeting. and say, "Hi, my name is Rob and I'm looking for a sponsor." And guess what? Three people will come up to you and say, "Oh, I'd be glad to help." And, talk to them, see if they work where they're at. So I think that one of the biggest challenges, people think, I got to walk up to people and ask them, and what will they say? You can just ask like you just did. And I bet two or three people, because it's good for them. It's good for me if I am your sponsor to see where I was, to see what works and what doesn't, and to be reminded of my own work. So on every level, it's a great thing, and that's how you do it. Tammy, do you have other? We have a
Well, the
bunch of
only other thing
questions. So
is, I loved that you said, it's, it's a relation, and I do know people who have had the same sponsor their entire career in recovery.
sure,
That was not me, and I encourage people, like, if this person can help you get some traction, get a foundation in recovery, great. And now you need someone else, great. That's the next chapter, and you can still be friends. You can be peer accountability, like all kinds of things, can happen, but yeah, the people who have healthy, look for healthy recovery, that they're actually working the steps, they're actually doing the work. The people that keep coming in every week and go, yeah, I acted out again, or I did this or whatever. That's not someone who's going to be the optimal fit for moving forward in recovery. Someone who says that's okay to, to lie to your spouse or whatever. I mean,
you can
there's so
find anyone
much.
who'll agree with anyone,
Yes,
anything.
thank you.
Right.
Talk about that. Yeah, because
Mhm.
we've talked about that before too, where you can find somebody that'll agree with you. I had a support session not too long ago with somebody who was like, "Well, my sponsor is saying, contrary to my therapist," and so they're good. They're leaning to that because it was like the nicer thing. I
Disclosure.
shouldn't tell. Yeah, it was about
Yeah, how,
disclosure.
right. The
Yeah.
9 step
How'd you
says, I've
guess?
heard this
Yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah.
I know that we don't want to repeat someone who's asked a bunch of questions already. And
hmm
basically, if you could try to keep it to one, but I do think the 519 is useful. We can, if
Go
you
ahead. It says, my wife has no support system. She is against therapy and blocked her family because they are asking her to be reasonable and reconsider.
I would say stop. Whoops, stop. That wasn't me barking there, by the way.
No, it's okay.
That's a very loud dog. So, all I can say to this is stop looking at your wife. Stop looking at what she's doing, who she's talking to, whether she's in therapy. If you're struggling, attend to your struggle. Don't look at her or whoever it is, a partner, and say, "Well, you need to do this," and you had a slip. You're struggling with their own recovery. Leave them alone, and let them make their own decisions and do it. Because what I hear under there is, "Well, if we were in therapy." Well, if she was talking to her family, then I would get what I want and we would together, we would work it out. I don't think that's any of your business. I think, and I know it is your business, stay together, whatever it is. But on some, what is your priority is working on yourself, because nothing else, no matter what your partner does, is going to help you. If they can want to stay with you, they can get therapy, and if you're still acting out, they're still going to want to leave. So focus on yourself and your own recovery, and it is through the work you are doing that they'll decide whether to work it out with you or not. Okay.
So the next one, and then we're out of questions. So fill it
No,
up
a lot of
again.
time
Yeah.
questions. Okay.
Yeah. Why do some addicts stop acting out but still feel internally dysregulated, anxious, inadequate, or lacks a high level of empathy? And what deeper work addresses that? I have an enmeshed relationship with my mother. I'm a male sex addict, 1 year in recovery. Thank you. You gave us
Will you
all the
start this, Tim?
information. Well, yeah, no, I love, like, that was all very, very helpful.
Succinct,
So
right?
yeah, but like, I mean, it paints a really good picture. So I'm gonna throw some more resources in. Dr. Rob and Dr. Ken Adams, who's kind of like the guru on mother enmeshment, did a podcast in 2018, and it's still one of the most popular. Well, it is the most popular podcast. So that just tells you you're not alone. That's why I'm saying that. And then John Taylor did a 2-part webinar. I will go find those things. So, but let's start with your 1 year in. Like, so we talk about recovery taking, 2 to 5 years if you're really doing the work. So you're probably right on track with that. I don't hear, the stopping the acting out, great. And that is just abstinence. That, I say all the time, that's just not doing the things we weren't supposed to do in the first place. So the deeper work is the ongoing. So you just heard me do a whole bunch of promotion for 12 step. How many 12 step meetings are you going? You want to go get regulated? Go to a 12 step meeting. Like, I still do that. When I walk in there and I hear, I just sit down in the chair, like I feel my whole body just Yeah, there's something about that that's really important. We have a zillion webinars and we talk about, all of the various grounding exercises Troy Love did on the webinar last week. Lots of those things so that you in the moment can do like a breathing exercise and regulate and have the thinking part of your brain do that. Empathy is a higher order skill, and practicing that with your peers in 12 step, practicing that with your group therapy people, that's a great place to practice because that's the safest place to practice so we can learn and then we can grow that. The hard part, and mother enmeshment, it is challenging, and so having somebody who understands both and there are CSATs who are trained in mother enmeshment work. Having someone who's trained for both of those will probably best serve you in unpacking that. It's challenging because learning to hold up a boundary that has been trashed through, for as many years as you've been alive, that is really difficult. But there is support. You are not alone. It sounds like you're tracking along the process. I'm going to throw like our work group, even, like the healing attachment wounds. That could be a really good one. Inner child. I'm going to put a bunch of the different work groups in for you to consider along the way too. But so I'm going to load up the chat while Dr. Rob is talking.
Well, I'm going to just put my mental health hat on for a moment. And I'm going to say that if you've stopped acting out, if you're working on your therapy, you're working on yourself in some way, you're getting a fair amount of support. Stopping acting out. Yes, it is regulating it, meaning it distracts us from our pain, it distracts us from our anxiety, and so we become focused on the addiction and the desire to do this or that, and we are not checking in with ourselves. So I know and this is why I mentioned stress before. When I am working 60 hours a week, it's an immediate relief to go act out. So I think what I want to say, these are also psychiatric issues: self-hatred, shame, internal dysregulation, anxiety, inadequacy. These are mental health issues, and they're also coming out of active addiction. And I agree with Tammy. We're community-based people, and I don't care where you do it, but I think really having people around you, people you can call, not being isolated, whatever your relationship is with your partner, making sure they aren't the only person you turn to. But most importantly, in this particular situation, get yourself checked out. And I hear people say, "Oh, I don't want to see a psychiatrist, whatever. I don't want to take medication." You don't have to, but gain information. Go there and have them say, I think this is what's going on, or that might be helpful. You don't have to do it, but at least you can learn from it and learn more about yourself. So stopping acting out can often lead to understanding that you've been dysregulated for a long time and you've anxiety for a long time. And those are clinical issues. Is it Married to Mom, the book? Is that what it?
Well, Silently Seduced and When He's Married to Mom.
Silently
Both of those.
Seduced.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I think Silently Seduced is a wonderful that Dr. Adams wrote. And I have to say that the majority of the men that I work with have had some kind of disruption with the parent, where the parent's needs came before their own. And they learned how to get their needs met by getting someone's attention, but they never really learned what was inside of them that fulfilled them inside. So I was my mom's caretaker. I was there to meet her needs. I guess my best example of that is she would take me to her card party with her friends or whatever it was. Lord knows why I was there because everyone was over 50, but I was there. And my mom would like, look at my beautiful son and see how wonderful he is and how smart he is. And well, she didn't really want to show me off. She wanted to show off herself. She wanted everyone to see how wonderful she was because she had produced me. And great, lovely meeting those ladies, but did I need my mom there cheering for me in a place that wasn't? No, but it was about her. And so to me, enmeshment can often be at a vulnerable parent who seeks us out when we're not ready to be the support that they need. And Tammy's right, it is a system. Families are a system, and it's very hard to change. And once you do, I remember this so clearly, the system will also often close up and you can't get back in and you can't. So I don't think either one of these are things you can take on alone. I think these are both issues that require either a deep dive into the enmeshment. And by the way, you may need new boundaries. Well, I call my mom 3 times a week and I go over there every other day. well, maybe you need to sit down and say, Mom, I can only come once a week. Or, you're going to have to get a carpenter to fix with that. Or things you may feel obligated to do may not be a realistic obligation. It's just what you've always done. So I'm glad you brought these up, as Tammy said, because they're all good questions. And we both gave different answers and we're both something to be considered. So great
Yes.
question.
Yeah. And if you're looking for a qualified professional, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. Tell me where you're located and I'll do my best. Okay. My sex addict in recovery husband and our adult daughter's relationship has been harmed through his acting out, etc. Should I stay out of it and let them repair it? It has been 2 years and nothing is getting better. Oh, that's so painful.
So I need a time. I'm sorry, I got two different
That
things
one
going.
is in the open. It's 6:43.
5:43. Okay, I
Oh,
got it.
5:43. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Go
One more
ahead.
week and then, yeah,
Why
we're
don't
on. Yeah.
you? Really? In one week,
So
we're going to be in the same time zone?
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
it
great.
turns again.
Can't
No,
wait
it's
for
not
that.
great. No, I hate it. So I'm looking for Layla. Here it is. Leilani Sinclair did adult children of sex addiction. She also works with Dr. Rob, or no, Dr. Ken Adams, who wrote the book Into the Light about, and he did, Dr. Ken and Dr. Rob did a podcast on adult children of sex addicts too. So those could be resources. Super unqualified to answer should I stay out of it or not. But I'm wondering if giving you this information would be useful. And also, I know, well, I think I know, Leilani does some consultations. So she or Dr. Ken might be able to, or someone else who's been trained for that work. They're working on a workbook as well about that. But I'm wondering if getting someone who's really qualified, to meet with your daughter and maybe that would be check. So I just put the webinar on there, but that to me would be something. I also like, what does your daughter want? Like, I mean, if she's the one that's been, has been harmed, what is she looking for? And take your husband out of the equation. How is she doing with the rest of her life? Like, are other things impacted? Probably, so her doing some trauma work, perhaps, there are opportunities, separate from a relationship with your husband, which could be really difficult if it was forced. That probably wouldn't go well. But I'm just thinking, ask her, can you support her with some, so with some trauma therapy or someone who understands these kind of issues, and see, and maybe she'll come to that. I do need to have, a conversation in a therapeutic in a therapeutic setting with with either the two of you or with him. I don't know. So thoughts, Dr. Rob?
Well, what I hear is your distress, and I can't imagine what it'd be like to see, your husband and your daughter in this set of circumstances. And I can only imagine how much you'd like to have holidays go better and, to do, I mean, I completely understand your distress, but it is your distress. And it is something that you need to deal with. So I'm going to ask, I'm going to do a Tammy thing, go through the words. Should I stay out of it and let them repair it? I think you can say what you need to say and still stay out of it. If it were me, I'd pull my daughter aside and say, make whatever decisions you want, but I want you to let you know how I feel. I'm disappointed. I'm sad. In other words, tell her not what to do or don't to your husband, but it's okay to say, no one can argue with what you feel. And it doesn't have to be an attempt. You reveal those things to your daughter, you might get closer to her, and boy, did the wagging finger, I want the two of you to get along. And don't you know how much this affects me? That's not helpful. But I appreciate your tone, which is, I think, one of sadness and resignation. And if I were your daughter, I'd want to know. I would want to know what's going on with my mom. And I would not that she thinks I'm doing right or I'm doing wrong or how to do it. But I just want this is sad for me, and whatever you decide to do, um, it hurts me every day. And I just, without guilting, without shaming, definitely without telling her what to do, but simply saying how her distancing and this situation affects you. And it can even be something as, I don't know who to invite on Thanksgiving. It's really hard for me to make those kind of decisions. It can be practical. So, can you stay out of it and let them repair it? Sure. But what about you? Because you're the one who's distressed here, and I think you do need to be able to express your upset. I'll disagree with Tammy, and I don't think you can make them go to therapy. I don't. You think you can say, well, if we all just do this, then
Oh, I
it's
no,
all.
I
Maybe I
agree.
misinterpreted you.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sorry.
I said ask your daughter,
Right,
what she need. Like this is no, I like you
right,
can't make anybody do anything. I said, ask your daughter, is it negatively impacting other areas? Is she open to getting support for some trauma?
right, right.
Be willing to pay for it, so
And this
that
could
was what I was
be
saying.
and I agree with this, and I hear what Tammy's saying. First of all, yeah, how is she doing? Because she may be doing just fine, and she may not want your help, and
Mhm.
that's you can tell her what you feel. The other thing you can say is, would you be willing to do some therapy with me? Mother daughter, and can we sit down and work through our feelings about this? I know you feel so strongly, and so do I. But again, you can't make anyone do what they don't want to do, and you can't make her do this. By the way, I want to say that we don't, this is very specific circumstances. What is she angry about? When did she find it out? How old? How did she see you react? I mean, there's so many pieces. And I really want to say for this particular question that we're giving very general direction because talking to her may be the worst thing in the world. I don't know. But what I would recommend if someone is in therapy and I could see an opening would say, your daughter loves you, you love her, let her know how you feel. To me, that would be a really good path. But again, I don't know you or your circumstances.
Well, and I was thinking grief, like all three of you are really experiencing a lot of grief because, your daughter is like, he's not the dad I thought I had. Your family isn't the family you thought you. I mean, like the whole thing. So there's a lot of grief, and that may be another. Like I can imagine that there may be some grief. Are you open to getting some support around some professional help around processing through the grief? Yeah, it's always invitational. I know for sure I can't make anybody do anything, but if I'm able to say, like, gosh, I can imagine how or maybe I can't even imagine how much grief this is for you. I can know how much it is for me, but are you open to, getting some support? So,
There's one
but
more thing
okay,
I was going to say. Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
You go ahead. No,
No, go.
it's not
I was
that
going to
important.
read the next question. So,
Um, uh, it's not important. I mean, I was going to say something about, oh, I know what I was going to say is that sometimes what happens is your daughter might be protecting you. She may be saying, look what
mm,
you did to my mom, and how could you
yeah.
treat, and I'm not going to, it's sort of like a threat from her. And sometimes I think it's really important for a spouse to say two things. One is, I love you, but what goes on between me and your father is between your father. And I may not be fine with it. I may be fine with it, but I don't need a protector. And I am your mother, and it's my job to figure it out for myself and to be there for you. So, because Tammy and I have seen situations where a child is so angry under that I'm going to make sure mom never goes through this again. Well, mom might want to try to work it out, and then the child's in the middle. So, I would also want to understand why is it about you? Is it about protecting you or trying to make sure you don't get hurt? Or, again, this is very complex. We can't give an answer, but there are lots, then there are more questions than answers. But what a great question, by the way. Really like that one.
Okay, I'm gonna go back. I'm typing because we're gonna run out of time. Okay, so the next one, this is from the porn addicted husband, a year and a half since D-Day, working the steps and weekly CSAT. I still can't seem to open up to anyone, and it's hurting my wife. What can I tell my therapist that will let them help me with this more? Childhood abuse and neglect have made me very avoidant.
Okay, so now I'm going to need you to tell me again what time this is. I'm just section.
5:45 your time
Thank you,
in
because
the
it's
open.
okay. I got it.
Yeah.
Um, so why don't you start with this? Because I want to reread it because I was just
Okay.
confused about the
Okay.
time. I mean, answer it and I'll
Yeah, and
read it.
so I put in the chat the Out of the Doghouse work group that Dr. Rob wrote. His most popular book is Out of the Doghouse for Men Who've Been Caught Cheating, and it's how to build trust, and that could be part of it. And then I go back to I'd already put in like attachment wounds, like you have you have abuse and neglect as attachment wounds. That would be really helpful. And at some point, like this is me in early recovery, and everything was really hard. Everything was really hard. Everything was new, and I didn't know how to do it. So at some point, I can't seem to open up. Like it would be really interesting to talk to your therapist and go, like, I'm terrified of opening up and I want to learn how to do it. I mean, there's journaling. Like you could open up in a journal and then, whether you share that with your therapist or whatever. I did put our drop-in groups in that those are like people from everywhere, different than going to a 12 step is 12 step is 12 step and I love them. But our drop-in groups are people from everywhere and they're not, it's not, with the goal of working the steps. There's not, sponsors. It is not, they're all hosted. Troy Love does one on Fridays, and people go in the healing seat, I think he calls it, rather than the hot seat. But it's an opportunity to, like, that would be called making yourself really vulnerable if you were willing to do that. And I can't imagine what a huge breakthrough you could have. You will probably be really uncomfortable. And that's what my early recovery journey was all about is I was uncomfortable. My addiction was comfortable. So I had to do the opposite. And so you have a wife that is looking for you to connect, so at some point going, I'm going to be really brave, even though I'm really scared. What would it look like for you to move towards instead of move away? Yeah, we're avoidant, but we can act differently. Basically 12 step is recovery is acting a different way. So I'm inviting you to act differently than you even feel, but we can act our way into good choices. So
I wanted to kind of build on what Tammy said, which is number one, I'd start with a journal and I would write it about child abuse and neglect. Let me tell you, one of the first things I find helpful with conflictual couples who are in a crisis is to simply say, maybe there's some things you don't know about how I grew up. Or maybe, in other words, let your spouse, why does he act this way? And what maybe say, well, you may not be aware, but I was beaten, whatever it is, because sometimes our spouses don't actually know the detail of what we've been through. So I would start writing it down. And then I would say, would you mind if I read this to you? Because sometimes it's that face to face. I don't know what they're going to say, but you can put it down on paper and you can read it. And by the way, if you're in a 12-step program, I would read it to someone else or a therapist and say, these are the things I want to say. So you're not being manipulative or you're not saying the wrong thing or being too revealing. But if you can't start with a face-to-face conversation, start with I won't say paper, start with your pad or your computer and write down that I struggle with intimacy. I want to be closer to you. Here are some of the things that happened. I don't know. I think because she may be sitting back saying, well, she is. Why can't he be more intimate? I don't understand. Why can't you just talk to me? Well, let me tell you why. And again, I cannot tell how helpful it is to put it down in some kind of document or somewhere. And I may not be able to say it to you, but I can read it to you, or maybe I can leave it for you to read and we can talk about it later. Intimacy is learned for us because we didn't. Actually, I'll tell you something really interesting. What your wife is experiencing with you is what you experienced growing up. What your wife is feeling with you is how you felt growing up. So she feels neglected. She feels child abuse and neglect. She feels your neglect. She is feeling it. She knows what you went through. So this isn't a mystery to her. When you say, I feel neglected, she could say, so do I. So there is a mirror. You actually could talk about the same thing in different ways. And spouses, I mean, all of you, I know this sounds very odd, but it's certainly been my experience that every spouse knows what I went, well, my spouse knows what I went through because that's what they feel when I treat them in a certain way. I was neglected. My spouse can feel neglected. I was yelled at. My spouse can feel afraid of me. It's generally the thing that we can mirror. And so if you think about what you grew up with, you can think about how you left your spouse feeling. Anyway, sorry, I know we're running up against time. One thing, Tammy, can you tell them the name of our podcast if they've only seen this and they actually haven't gone and listened to it? We have
yes.
years and
So
years and
sex, love, and
years.
addiction. And
That's
I
mine.
put a number of references to that one, and I put the link to all of our podcasts. But then Overcoming Betrayal and Addiction is the one that comes mostly out of these webinars. And it's mostly Dr. Rob and I, but I have thrown a few in of other, topics and good stuff as well. And so I will go back. Sex, Love, and Addiction has had like 3 million downloads on it. Overcoming Betrayal and Addiction is doing well, but it's a lot newer. And, I didn't pay attention. Then all of a sudden I was like, oh, it's actually doing well. So we try to have relevant information. I've had a number of addicts to go, every time I think about acting out, I use a podcast. Great, great. Listen to a podcast rather than acting out and then listening to a podcast. I've had trade partners talk about like just hearing the information, help them not feel so alone. So however they can be useful. Our YouTube channel, this will be posted tomorrow well, actually somebody's on vacation. There may be a delay on this, but our YouTube channel has over 1,300 hours of content. I know a lot of them. If you're looking for something in particular, email me. But like we want there to be good resources because there's so much junk out there. We want to help you find true healing and
that are
recovery, and you
free.
can. Yeah, lots of
What
stuff is
is
free. The
what is our
support sessions
YouTube?
and work
How
groups
do
are
they find
not.
us on YouTube?
The easiest way is to, well, you can go to the Seeking Integrity channel on YouTube, but I think here's where I point people. If you go to the Seeking Integrity website and free resources, but then we have videos, and it's not just the previously recorded webinars. It's like your webinars or your video clips when you've been on other, on various different shows, Mel Robbins,
Is Oprah
etc. So
there? No, that was my
no,
chance to drop
I
Oprah
had
in.
to go
I had
dig
to
for
drop
that
that in.
one. Somebody commented and I went and found that. I actually found it. So yeah, no, but there's a number of different ones. And again, you can kind of sort through, Dr. David
Right.
Fawcett's going to be, chemsex, co-occurring Debbie McCrae. She's fantastic with
Well, you
betrayed
can read a
partner stuff.
transcript. You can read what it's about, and you actually say, "I want to hear this part or hear that
Well,
part." So,
probably, but I
mhm.
don't think we're as sophisticated as we could be on YouTube. That's a whole other topic. But I
Oh,
try
on
to add,
podcast, right?
I try to put some, yeah, the podcast you can, but on the YouTube, I try to put some, hints, and I have captured ones that are like therapeutic separation and
Mm-hmm.
collaborative divorce. I've tried to capture
Mm-hmm.
those. So we're
All right,
way
we got to
past time.
go.
I'm sorry that we're not going to get to those last two questions. Come back next week. Put them in
Write us.
right away. Yes.
TAMI
Um,
at seekingintegrity.com.
this is
See you
true. All
guys.
right.
See you,
Thank
Tammy.
you. Bye.
Bye.